Welcome back to Berchtesgaden. We're at Königssee, just outside the city in the heart of Bavaria. The oldest artificial ice track on the planet is the venue for the 2017 BMW IBSF Skeleton World Championships. It's an overcast day as we get into the second heat of the men's competition. Hello everybody, thanks for joining us. I'm Martin Haven, alongside me 2010 Olympic champion Amy Williams. And Amy, we got an interesting race shaping up with a bit of surprise in our top three.
We do. So this is Gassner, Alexander of Germany. He was our kind of big surprise there, coming on through in a time of 51.45. Very experienced on this track, obviously being a German. So yeah, he's done really well to be in third place at the moment. And then Nikita came in second place. Yeah. The Russian, who's not quite as experienced as all the rest. He's ahead of his teammate Trechikov, which was a little bit of a shock. You'd expect it the other way. And Martin Dukas in first place. Our absolute speed demon of a god. Perfect form. I mean, he's absolutely flawless. And he has come in first place, 50.99, nearly half a second in front of the others.
Yeah, Dukas is making everybody else look like they're all inexperienced on this track, but that is what he's done for more than 45 World Cup races and 4 World Championships. Nikita Trechikov now triple junior world champion, and Alexander Gassner set a track record last weekend in the team's competition, but it is a surprise to see him as the best of the Germans, ahead of the Olympic champion Alexander Trechikov. Axel Jung disappointed with himself. Dave Christian of Canada, 10th place on a sled on which he has got no more than a dozen runs. Brand new sled this weekend. And Ander Mirambel of Spain, 11th position, an astonishing first run from him. But perhaps the biggest surprise in the entire first heat was the Chinese 19-year-old rookie Wang Changgeng, who is making his first senior appearance in the end of his first year sliding. He is in 21st place. There are 44 sleds in the field, only 24 of whom were in last year's World Championships. 14 rookies, including a host of new nations like Taipei, like Luxembourg, like Ghana and Jamaica. Well, here's the covered start area that tomorrow will be full of 4-man bobsleds, and there are the Ducours brothers. Martins, our race leader and our double defending world champion. He's going for a third straight world championship. Alexander Trechikov, the last man not named Martins Ducours to win a world championship. That was in St. Moritz 5 years ago now. And Alexander Gassner, out of the World Cup team for 3 seasons as his form dropped, but he is right back at his very best, and if he pulls a medal out of the fire here, that will be a massive surprise. Our start list, we go 20 down to 1 in reverse order of their first heat performance, and then from 21st on down to 44th in the order in which they finished. So our race leader goes out in 20th place in this start draw. And then 21st is the 21st place athlete, and we will work our way through the rest of the field. "44 sleds ready to take on the Königssee track in the men's skeleton world championship. First away in the second heat, 20th after the first heat, is Jack Thomas, a rookie in the World Cup this season, making his first world championship appearance.
Yeah, he just put out a better start time there than his first one in 4:75. Let's see if he can hold it together to finish off this first day of racing.
What does it do when you're in the World Championships, Amy? You know, a first time on the big stage, you've got to be nervous before the first heat. Once you've done that, okay, does that kind of clear your mind?
I always found getting down that first run definitely, made a difference. You're suddenly more relaxed, but it's holding it together. It's not getting your nerves, too high on this massive occasion. This is a massive learning curve for Jack here, having never competed in the World Champs. See where it comes down in 52.76. A little bit slower than that first run, but it's very hard to see now with the track and the conditions. They spritz the track in between to prep it, which puts a little fine layer of fresh water on and just smooths out any of the layers and gets rid of the frost. But the weather is changing. It's a little bit warmer now than it was this morning. So let's take a look. So that's him coming out of Kreisel. Little tiny knock, but actually a very good solid run by him there, and I think he should be very happy with that.
Familiar face overlooking things down in the lower labyrinth there. That pin sent, and there is Jack Thomas. He goes into the leader's box. And next up, the athlete who was 19th, Rhys Thornberry of New Zealand. Tuffy Latour, by the way, the American skeleton coach, is helping out there at the top. Just want to say hi to Charlie Booker. I know that you are watching Charlie back home, so we're sending all our best to you.
Big hello, Charlie.
Rhys Thornberry from New Zealand, born in Australia, lives in the UK. He's in the RAF at Bryce Norton in Oxfordshire, just down the road from my hometown. 4:86 getaway. Again, just a few hundred slower, but the ice on the track and in the start area will both have changed, won't they?
Yeah, he is higher ranked in his World Cup points here, so he is going to want to improve. Just needs to clean up his act there. His elbow was just pointing out, so just making him a little bit scruffy, and his feet are just dragging there.
He does know how to slide this track. He was 8th in the World Cup race here just 3 weeks ago, and gets a little better exit, not quite so much of a hit off the Kreisel. In the green over Jack Thomas, so preserving his position and trying to go ahead. And a lot of match, look at that, 3,300s. He was 700s up out of the Kreisel, 3,300s up, so we know where Jack's speed went away. Comes across the line, 6/10ths up from a slightly slower start, 52.23. That's 3,600s better than his first heat, and you can see in his body he's much happier.
Yeah, he managed to find those, the speed in those last few corners, and obviously had done very well at the top, which carries that through, and managed to just come on through. Though he did take that hit out of there, he's maintained the position, although dragging his little toes, but he's come across the line, in front of Jack. So Jack will be now off of that leader.
Yep, Jack goes away to think about tomorrow. Rhys Thornberry stays in the leader's box. Third of our athletes in the second of 4 heats in the Men's Skeleton World Championships is Austrian Matthias Guggenberger. Took ill last year and was unable to compete in the men's competition on his home track in Eagles, which should surely have been one of the highlights of his career. Unfortunately, he didn't get to race. Fortunately, no ill effects whatsoever. He did get a team bronze medal earlier in the championships last year, so at least he got that out of his home race.
So Mickey Gumberger there, shouting at him. Used to be my coach, was my coach in Vancouver, and has now gone back to his home country, coaching the Austrians.
Good line onto the bending straight. Look at this is the straight, and you can see it goes right, left, before you get down to this 270-degree corkscrew Kreisel.
Yes, why they call it a straight, I do not know. It's a very tricky straight to get down, and then obviously you've got that funny little camber there going through. He's handling the track very well in the green, so at the moment he is managing to maintain his position.
Equal fastest speed. He was 2,800s up going into the Kreisel at the line, only 1,300s up. It was a little faster slide from Matthias Guggenberger, but it was not quite as much an improvement. Rhys Thornberry closes on him a fraction, so their battle continues, and Googie will go into the leader's box.
Yeah, about 400th quicker than his run 1, which is an improvement, but yeah, you're always wanting to fight and push your way up. There he is in the Kreisel. You can just see his toes there. He's just tapping away, but he's not dropping or rising too dramatically, so good Kreisel there.
They're just a few kilometres away from the Austrian border. And our second rookie from Great Britain now is Jerry Rice. He and Jack Thomas both made their World Cup debut on this track a year ago. And just 4 years ago, Jerry Rice was making his first ever appearance on an ice sled after making his way through talent selection with British Skeleton. Mark Wood and Amy Williams were watching him then. What a short distance it is from learning what it's like to slide to getting into the World Championships.
Yeah, we have a great performance at Great Britain now. Really taking these new sprinters, we talent ID them for pure speed and power, and then teach them on ice in a really intensive way. They've got great equipment now. We have more funding from the lottery in UK sport, which is brilliant, and this is an example example of it. Jerry Rice here, first World Championships after only 4 or 5 years of sliding, so really good.
But he also says that this is absolutely his favourite track, and he had a really good run down the straight. He's still in the red behind Matthias Guggenberger, working a little hard there, 1100s, so hasn't closed yet. Can he carry speed down through the labyrinth?
Yeah, you just need to relax here and not overwork it. Just let that sled run. He had a great exit of Kreisel there, and he's got really good lines. He just needs to relax.
52.33, so again, 2/10 quicker almost than his first heat, a little slower than Guggenberger, so he slips he slips 2 spots in fact. He's 300s behind New Zealand Rhys Thornbury. So Thornbury moves up a spot, Guggenberger moves up a spot as well. And Jerry Rice, Jack Thomas 3rd and 4th at the moment.
Yeah, so here's our dartfish comparison of the different sleds. You can just see Gugi there of Austria and Jerry, and how they're actually rising and forward and almost like switching over each other. So, yeah, Jerry is just a little bit missing those oscillations.
Returning to ice for the first time since Sochi 2014, when he walked away from the sport that had broken his heart. John Daly went away, got himself a day job, a home, and another life. And then the lure to correct what was a bad taste in the mouth when he left the sport was too much. He came back to US team trials at the beginning of the season, has been working weekdays, sliding weekends, 7 races he crammed into January to qualify for the first World Championships for him in 4 years.
Yeah, he's got to be a little bit tired now at the end of the season, cramming in all those races. But he really wants this, and he's got the experience. We're hoping that he moves up a few places here and continues, and then that fight towards the next year. You know, we're a year out before the Olympics, and these athletes, I'm really thinking about that. He had a little bit of a bad hit there coming out of the Kreisel.
Yeah, big hit. He was 800s up, and that has gone away. And don't forget, not only has he not slid in the World Championships, he hasn't been on this track in 4 years either, so that's a lot of cobwebs that need blowing away. And he comes down, loses a couple more spots, so he's 4th at the line, and that's what drilling that wall on the exit of the Kreisel will do. He clipped it in the first heat, tried to correct the steer, but in fact hit it even harder with the second run.
Yeah, you can just see that's the little rustiness, isn't it? He was in the lead up until that point, but you can just see dramatically how one hit like that can just bleed the speed away, and you can do nothing about it until you get off that sled and realise how much time you've lost. You can see there, you know, the highs and lows, and each track has a different personality, and this is the little sneaky bit there from the Kreisel that will either get you or it won't, and you've just got to perfect those steers.
Matthias Guggenberger of Austria leads first 5 of 44 sleds in Heat 2 at the Men's Skeleton Worlds. From St. Petersburg in Russia, Pavel Kulikov, the 6th of our sliders in the second heat of the Men's Skeleton World Championships. Watching the action trackside, Martin Haven and 2010 Olympic champion Amy Williams. Well, this young man in his 2nd World Championships, he's done half a dozen World Cup races. And a good start, 4.79 getaway.
Yeah, looking good and low on the sled there. Let's see how these S-bends go for him.
His best result, 12th in the World Championships in Eagles last season. His father is here coaching him. Mother Ella at home has also been on tour with him this season. Kind of in a little satellite team. We haven't seen him in World Cup races much. But 800s behind, but he got a good exit down onto the labyrinth.
Yeah, he got a good exit there, so let's see if he can find the speed and just move on up into the green. Or is Gugi gonna stay there up in that first place?
Well, he was 3rd, 2nd, now 2nd at line by 1300s. Matthias Guggenberger has moved up closer to where perhaps he might have expected to be after the first heat. Gugi ended up in 18th place after the first heat, and he still leads with 14 sleds to come, and he might not be done climbing. Well, there is his father, Nikolai Kulikov.
yes, you can have some quite big changes here in positions. If someone didn't do great first run and then they get the better, quicker rise because it's just been prepared and they go off, you know, as one of the first sliders in this second run, you can shift quite a lot, a few different places.
Big smile from Pavel Kulikov. He was only 900ths ahead of Matthias Guggenberger. Well, next up, Mattia Gaspari. He had 0.2 of a second in hand over our current leader, Matthias Guggenberger, from the first heat. And Gaspari's target in front of him, Nathan Crumpton, was only 0.06 of a second faster. When you think that it takes 0.07 of a second to blink the human eye, we are talking absolute tiny margins here.
Yeah, he's a slider from Cortina in Italy, which is a very traditional bobsleigh track. So yeah, whether or not he's been sliding quite a lot there on a skeleton, can't say I ever did.
You wouldn't want to.
No, I don't think you would want to. It's a naughty track, that one.
Yeah.
But yes, he is one of our Italian sliders coming out. Brilliant exit there from S4, straight down the middle.
Bronze in the Junior World Championships last year. He missed the first part of the season, didn't even see ice until Altenburg in January because he was training to become part of the Italian police service. So he's had a very short season, just 100th behind Guggenberger.
Yeah, he was here a few weeks ago when he got his 11th place in the World Cup, so he's going to be really wanting to really match that, but knowing it's a different field, a bigger field, and it's different. But look, he's come on down in first place, so Guggenberger's having to move off of that first position.
Mattia Gaspari takes the lead. That's a good second run, and Gaspari, and we talked about this in the first heat, maybe not doing the first part of the season. He's a bit rusty in the ice, but fitness and fatigue are not an issue for him at the moment. So Gaspari's all fired up to do well here.
Yes.
Top of the track, the first of, well, getting into the top 10, towards the top 10, Nathan Crumpton from the USA. Fifth fastest starter with a 4.72 getaway. A triple jumper, claims to have ridden water buffalo when he was a child, born in Nairobi in Kenya. Lived in Africa, Europe, North America, and he was a triple jumper from Princeton. Second year in the World Cup this season. And this is his second World Championships. Mum's travelled over to watch him at the trackside as well.
Yeah, it's got to be hard for a lot of these athletes from Canada and America. It's a long, long season. I believe some of these haven't been home since November. So it's tough. Life on the circuit. You kind of have that summer life, the winter life at home, and you're on the road, traveling a lot, away from home, away from family. And it means a lot if you can have family. Just come and watch that one race of the season. You know, just give you that little boost of morale.
Well, he was 1500s up at the start, opening up to 2200s over Mattia Gaspari. Needs a good exit here from the Kreisel. High second pressure, control it, hits the wall hard.
Yeah, he's had 2 10th place finishes in the World Cup, and he's ranked 11th coming into this. So, yeah, he has been doing really well. You always want to get into that kind of top 10 and stay there.
Went from 2.10s up to 2900s behind, and that's what the hit on the wall does. Tuffy Latour gives him a little round of applause, but he'll be disappointed with himself after that. And again, we talked about it in the first heat. We'll talk about it throughout this World Championship weekend in skeleton and bobsleigh. Exiting the S's onto the curving straight and exiting the Kreisel. They're the key elements.
So here's our dartfish between Nathan there and then the Italian who's in the lead. You can just see the difference of those rise and falls and catching those oscillations, knowing where you are, using your peripheral vision, your feelings, your sense, and you can see he got the pressures in those slightly different places, which means he hits coming out.
You see the grimace from the audience as well as he just hits the wall. Into the top 12 sleds in the second heat of the Men's Skeleton World Championships. Top 20 going in reverse order, and then the rest of the field follow on. Barrett Martineau, 12th place, really good first run in the teams competition. Got the X of the Kreisel wrong and smashed into the wall. much better first run in the singles.
So he is ranked as the #1 Canadian in the World Cup points, but you know, his teammate did do a little bit better, so he's going to be trying to see if he can put down a really good run here. A little race between the Canadians here within this race.
After a disappointing season in bobsleigh and skeleton, they had a much better weekend last weekend in the women's bob and in the men's bob, so it kind of buoys up the whole team. Oh, again, a little late as he drives off the Kreisel.
Yeah, he was 12th in the event a couple of weeks ago, but you can see he had great height coming out of the Kreisel, but just that little angle. I mean, sometimes it comes down to literally a centimetre or an inch that your sled is just angled that little bit too much left or right, which means you hit the wall. So unfortunately, he doesn't go into that leader's box.
Drops a couple of spots behind Matthias Guggenberger and Mattia Gaspari. So the Mattias are moving up, or Matthias and Mattia. Gaspari leads, Guggenberger second. So the Italian and the Austrian move up a spot. Barrett Martineau a little more disappointed with that run, and you can see why, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, that, like anything, if you hadn't hit there, it would have been perfect because you've got so much height, and the speed is just finding that perfect height.
Heading towards the top 10 after the first heat, Ander Mirambel of Spain, a 1/10 of a second in hand over Italy's Mattia Gaspari, who's our current leader. Mirambel having a standout season this year. His best previous World Championship result, 25th in Lake Placid 4 years ago. He was 27th last year in Innsbruck. And look at him now. He had a great first heat. He was so excited, 11th. And he is looking now, eyeing a top 10 finish.
Yeah, I reckon he's kind of our surprise almost from the first run. We would not have expected him, and he didn't expect to be quite so highly ranked. He's 14th ranked in the world at the moment, and his best position in any World Cup has been 13th. So he had so much joy in his face at the end. So let's really hope he can hold on to this and get down and maintain his position.
Well, he's made the top 20 and made the cut in every single race this season. It's the first season on ice that's happened, and a lot of that goes to the fact that he's part of Martin Rettel's coaching group, and he is getting professional coaching every day at every track rather than having to guess. He's actually got some knowledge going in. He slipped away behind Mattia Gaspari. He's going to lose half a dozen places with a difficult run, 5 spots further back. So that's not where the direction he wanted to go.
Yeah, it shows you how good Gaspari's run was there. I mean, that was a really good run by Ander. Whether or not he's then just doing that little bit too much. You know, if you do too much steering, then you're not letting the sled just run. But he had a good exit of Kreisel there. You can just see him using his feet. Whether he's then oversteering it and he just needed to let it run, it's finding the balance.
Maybe the track has gone away from the runner setup he had first thing this morning. So we have had our first 10 sleds down, and the race being led by Mattia Gaspari as Matthias Guggenberger follows him up the order. Top 10 next. Martin Haven and 2010 Olympic champion Amy Williams watching the men's skeleton world championships here in Königssee, Bavaria. And Canada next on the agenda. Dave Greshcheshin, one of the tallest, heaviest athletes in the field, the ex-rugby player from Brampton, Ontario. 10th place after the first heat. Really looking to improve on that with his second slide of the day.
Yeah, he started off the season so well with an 11th place in the opening World Cup in Whistler, and sort of just slowly dropped away throughout the season. So whether that's the inexperience, the tiredness, the being on the road, away from home, always hard to tell. But you know, you're going to want to finish this season on a high. So far, he's in that green with a great straight there.
In fact, Lisbeth Varche's dad was just telling me that he's on a brand new sled that he's never raced before. He's only done the training week and training up for this World Championships, plus the team event on this Willie Schneider-built sled, changing from his old Sate, and he is still learning its intricacies. His brother's here watching, and this is a good run from Chris. He was 32 hundredths up, and he will take the lead from Mattia Gaspari. He cements his top 10 finish overnight. That was a little faster than his first heat, and that will allow him, I think, a little bit of comfort as he heads into day 2 of the World Championships. But for the men, won't be now till Saturday.
Well, that sled, that new sled, is obviously working out for him there. It's a very hard process of bonding with a sled and getting used to the equipment. If you're going to do any of these changes and learning, you want to do it that year out before a Games. You don't want to start fiddling around with too much equipment so close to an Olympics.
Dave Greshcheshin in the top 10. He's the leader for Canada, and he will not be on ice now until Sunday, the men's 3rd and 4th heats. Great Britain's Dom Parsons, top-ranked British athlete. In fact, the only one of the 3 British sliders in the men's field who has competed in the World Championships prior to this season. He lies in a strong 9th place. And actually, if he can continue with this kind of form, then he might be on target for his best World Championship result.
He had really good training time, so he's going to, you know, want to stick to that. You never want to go slower than your training times, obviously. He is our most experienced GB slider here in the field today. It's his 4th World Champs. So Dom here is really looking for a good top 10 result.
Best ever World Championship result, 7th position. And that was in Winterberg in Germany 2 seasons ago. He knows the track well.
Yeah, he's one of the most experienced sliders, has probably had some of the, you know, apart from the Germans, some of the highest number of runs on this track. So far, you can tell he's having a very good run down here, in full control, looking very calm on the sled, and in the greens. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, opening his margin up now from 21 to 32 hundredths over Dave Greshcheshin. This is a really good run from Dom Parsons. That might be the best trip down a mountain he's had all year long. 51.83, 1 World Cup podium in his career. That was in the season opener, what, 3 years ago now? And it's time for Dom to really recapture that form.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I'd expect from him. He really does need to be thinking to being up in that top 6 in every single race now. Brilliant line there through that labyrinth, straight down the middle. You know, a bit of a rocket down through there. So, you know, I'm really pleased he's up in that top position. Let's hope that he can hold it there.
Yeah, look at the smile on his face. 8 to go, our 8 fastest athletes, and then we get into the rest of the field. This is the second of 4 heats of the men's skeleton World Championships. Thomas Ducour's best World Championship result, a bronze medal 2 years ago in Winterberg in Germany. And he has won 1 World Cup race in his career, and that was just before brother Martins really started to find his feet on ice. Since then, he has been part of the family, and they've had more than a dozen 1-2 family results in men's skeleton over the last few years.
Yeah, it's always good to watch these brothers. He's already got 1 silver medal this year. You'd expect him, to be honest, to get a few more. He's ranked 6th in the World Cup rankings. So yeah, let's see if he can move on up, although technically we want Dom to stay there, don't we? Well, let's see how he goes here in the Kreisel.
In the green at the moment over Dom Parsons, and what was his advantage from the first heat? It was some 700ths of a second. He's opened it up now to 13 hundredths, but the gap has come down from 17, so he's losing ground again, and I have a feeling he might not have enough momentum to get to the line in front. Oh, by 200ths, but that closes that battle right up. Dom went 500ths quicker than him on this second run. Thomas had been 700ths faster in the first, so he leads on aggregate by 200ths of a second. And all heats count. You don't just give away heats. It's not like the 100 meters.
Yes,
Thomas and Martins with lots of Latvian Barmy Army fans.
This is the line through the Kreisel from Dartfish between Ducas and Parsons. Parsons actually, yes, still does have the fastest time, but it's obviously the aggregate of them added up. You can see Ducas is more consistent, and that's what it's all about. It's about putting down 4 consistent runs over a World Championships. Dom's actual speed was faster at 70.9 miles per hour, and Ducas there only got 70.5, so it's the consistency.
Matt Antoine of the USA having a good first slide under his belt to put him in 7th place, and 600ths of a second out of the top 6. And how far away are the medals? Well, bronze is 2200ths away. That's 1 error tidied up. So Antoine, 32-year-old, his best ever World Championship, St. Moritz, 2013. He was in 5th spot. He's not far away from that. 4:77 getaway. The start is getting faster as well.
Yeah, he's 8th in our World Cup ranking points, and he had a bronze and a silver across in North America on the World Cups there. So, yeah, he is a good, solid performer. He's very experienced at doing these World Championships races.
Only 10th here in January, 3 weeks ago, so he's already outperformed that result. And that, again, you know, coming back 3 weeks later, you've got all that knowledge base, you're just stepping up from that performance.
Yes, you're always making notes, so whenever you're going down, each time you slide, you're making notes of what you did, what stage you did, how the conditions were, and then you log all of that. Now, the track, I don't know whether it seems to be slowing a little bit here at the bottom.
It might be.
He has managed to come through in 1st place, but it's interesting to see, and I'm just looking at what the ice looks like now through the cameras. Can you see any frost appearing? Has it still got that shine? It's very hard to tell.
We've already had 65 sleds down, and here's the first man in the last half dozen sleds to actually go slower. Now, you can see part of the reason on the straight, couple of taps and a little skid, but not that bad. Matt Antoine has the lead with the fastest 6 athletes still to come. Not an improvement on his 2nd run. Top 6 after the 1st heat includes, you may be surprised to hear this, in Berchtesgaden, Bavaria, all 3 German athletes. First to get to us is Christopher Groothair, winner of his first ever race in the World Cup just a few weeks ago. Groothair won the first race of the new year in Altenburg, one of the toughest tracks in the business. Not so much of a glider, he likes a bit more of a driver's track. 4:74, just a fraction slower than his first start.
Let's try and see what his lines are like as a German who knows this track very, very well. Can we spot any differences?
Good exit out of the Kreisel, out of the S's rather, onto the long straight, and avoids too many taps and no skids.
Yes, feet are together all the time, so he's not having to work as hard. He's relaxed on the sled, lets the sled move underneath it, and look at that. I mean, that was a perfect way to exit the Kreisel, and that is inside knowledge of having hundreds of runs.
600s ahead of Matt Antoine from the 1st heat. The gap's out to 19, the gap's out to 3100s. This is Groothair trying to put himself in medal contention. 51.63, that's a very good slide. That would have left him in 5th place, not 6th after the 1st heat, so the challenge is there from Christopher Groothair. Well, to be only 3rd of the Germans was not what he would have wanted.
No, I mean, that looked like a gold medal run. He won his first World Cup gold medal in Altenburg in Germany, so he's obviously very good on his own tracks in Germany. That is the perfect way to do that straight. You can just see him moving his legs, but he didn't actually have to touch the ice. He's just balancing his body and the weight to move the sled. Perfect form.
Great thing about the yellow Deutsche Post logo is you can see where they're moving the hips, and that just shifts, slight shift of weight. And there you see, look, his toes right off the ice. Christopher Groothair, your race leader. Christopher Groothair of Germany leads from Matt Antoine and Thomas Ducour. 2nd heat of the men's skeleton worlds. Fastest 5 in the 1st heat up next. Axel Junk tried to put a brave face on his 1st heat. He was absolutely livid with himself as he came off the ice. 300s ahead of Christopher Groothair. He did not want to be in 5th. He wanted to be in the top 3. Well, that is a huge start from him. 4:66. That will be the 3rd fastest start of the competition so far.
He's only actually got 1 bronze medal of the season, but he's ranked 3rd in the points, so he's obviously very, very consistent.
He's been really struggling with a back injury. We talked to him when we came here, actually. He'd been back to Dresden, he'd had pain-killing shots in his back. Did it help? No, not at all. So he's really struggled for fitness this year, and that's part of the reason why he's not as relaxed on the sled, maybe. But look at this, 4,400s up, 151 kilometers now, 71.5 miles an hour. That's a very good run, and 1,200s off the track record, 51.12. That is second only to Martin Stukur's first heat. That is Axel Jung really swinging in for a medal.
He was flying down that track, you know, absolutely getting the perfect speed from all of those corners. Even though he took that little bit of a clip out of the Kreisel, he knows this track, he knows where to get the speed.
And he is still not happy. Well, they've come from Altenburg to support him. Yeah, that's why he's not happy.
Yeah, you want a clean run, but if he, I mean, imagine how fast he could be if he didn't clip it there. But he is absolutely flying. He's up there on that first place.
Olympic champion Alexander Tretyakov at the line, watching trackside in Königssee, Bavaria. Martin Haven, and Olympic champion from 2010, Amy Williams. Well, this man, the fastest starter in the field, but too many mistakes. Can he get himself into medal contention on this second run?
I mean, he won this event 3 weeks ago, so you could argue he was probably disappointed with the first run, but he's got an awesome push on him. He's in the green straight away into those S-bends. So let's see if he can hold on, or whether Axel actually will just pip him to it at the end.
4:57 equals his fastest start from the first heat. He was fastest when he lay down, only fourth at the bottom. Lots of work going on in the Kreisel and in the labyrinth.
He is not going to want to be beaten, is he, by his younger Russian training mates? He is going to want to fight for this all the way.
I'm not sure he's going to make it. He's going to lose a place to Axel Jung. Jung is going to pick off the Olympic champion. 51-35. Come on, Axel. This is what it's all about here. Tretyakov again carried the speed from the start down to the labyrinth, worked too hard there, and you can see all the timings were on in the lower labyrinth off the Kreisel. It just went away.
Yeah, he just was losing that time. So this is the dartfish with the different comparisons of the sleds. Roughly the same. It's not too bad. You can see Axel just got a little bit more height there, drops away, and then obviously just controls it differently at the end, but close. I mean, he just lost that speed and the time right at the bottom.
In the medals after the first heat of 4 is the man who owns the track record here. Out of nowhere last weekend, he started the men's competition in the or the men's skeleton leg of the team competition by beating Alexander Tretyakov, the then leader and Olympic champion, and setting a new track record. Alexander Gassner hasn't raced at the elite level for over 3 seasons. His last World Championships was 5 years ago, and suddenly he's in the bronze medal position after the first heat, and another really quick getaway.
Yeah, to match that bronze medal that he got only a few weeks ago is his World Cup first medal. So let's see if he can match that bronze or even shift up a few more places.
800s over Alexander Tretyakov. Tretyakov's fastest start, I better go over Axel Jung. Jung's fastest start will pay until here, but it's below the Kreisel that Gassner works his magic.
Yeah, you can see he wasn't quite as high in that second oscillation and came out more middle. So he had a clean down that the camber there.
1:15.1, 71.5 miles an hour. He's not going to be ahead of Axel Jung. Jung moves into a medal position overnight. 51.47, that was only 200 slower than his first heat for Alexander Gassner. But Axel Jung went 56 hundredths quicker. Wow. So we have 400s covering the top 2, 1100s covering the top 3, and we still have our fastest 2 to come.
Yeah, it's German versus German here, isn't it? You're always seemingly fighting against your own teammates for points and places and rankings, etc. But there he is coming down that straight. Very, very good straight, but just didn't quite get it.
Well, he'll be disappointed that he slipped out of 3rd place in the overnight standings, or has he? There are still 2 to come. They might make errors as well. Is the track going to hold up for our fastest 2 from the first heat? Triple junior world champion from Russia, Nikita Tregibov. That's why Russia have 4 athletes. Their normal allocation would have been 3 because of the nation rankings. The junior world champion gets a free entry to the senior worlds, and it's the 3rd year that Tregibov has done that. He is 22 years old now, 22 on Valentine's Day, and rivals Alexander Tretyakov as our fastest starter, and 4:64 another great getaway, even faster than his first heat.
Yeah, the Russians are great at starting, so we've got our own little Russian race here. Can the experienced one and the young one, who's going to get in front? The young one beating the most experienced. He's managed to get his one World Cup medal so far this season.
Tretyakov still learning to handle that speed all the way down the track. Big oscillation there, lots of toe steering from the labyrinth. And the gap's gone from 28 to 17. It'll be in single digits, but will he still be in front of Axel Jung, or is Jung going to move up to be the only challenger? 1500s, he's stopped losing time, so he will be in front of the German at the line by a 10th, and that makes Axel Jung a very happy boy. But Tretyakov will go to bed tonight, at least in a silver medal position.
Yeah, I think we've had a bit of a changing of the guard here between the two Russians. We've got Tretyakov, Alexander, who's always been that top-ranked, fastest Russian, and now the young Nikitina is the new kid on the block. One to watch out for in the future. Just look at that, very calm and composed on the sled. He's only 22 years old, so I think this is our future for the Russian athlete.
Well, the real question for the Russians is, without Willi Schneider in the camp anymore and still using Schneider sleds, are they going to make more progress before Pyeongchang? No question we're going to see more progress from this man, Martin Stukurz, working with Father Dennis and Brother Thomas. He has used no fewer than 6 different sleds in the World Cup races this season. We've only had 7 races. They test every single day some different piece of equipment as they work to figure out how to get the best for Pyeongchang.
Yes, it's whether or not he can keep hold of this 4300th lead that he's got.
He starts another 200ths of a second quicker, a 4:58 getaway. We've never had anybody in a red jersey before to denote our world champion. We have a World Cup points leader in yellow. Stukurz is that as well. Double world champion looking for his hat trick here. 110 kilometers an hour, 68.4 miles an hour into the Kreisel. Only second fastest speed, but the gap is continuing to grow.
Yeah, he's pulling away more and more. I mean, this man is incredible. He's got the best speed there, and he's still increasing that lead. He's absolutely Mr. Superman off the track, in the lead, in that unbelievable time, 7600ths faster.
3/4 of a second in front overnight. You think he's going to have any trouble sleeping?
Oh my word, like, it's incredible to watch. How and where does he find it? But at the same time, you watch him and you can just see his skills, how good he looks, how calm he looks. You can see him there. He just knows how and where to find all the speed. The height at the end there, dropping down, perfectly down into the middle of that. And there you are. That is our leader of the world champs after day 1.
And yet, you can talk to him and he will still pick up a dozen errors on the run that he needs to tidy up. Martin Stukurz leads Nikita Tretyakov. Axel Jung up to 3rd, ahead of the Olympic champion Alexander Gassner and Christopher Grotehair. 3 Germans in the top 6, 2 Russians and 1 Latvian. The first ever Chinese slider in World Championships in men's skeleton is Kang Weng-Chang, and coach Willi Schneider holds the sled for him. Willi Schneider, hugely experienced athlete in his own right in men's skeleton. Bronze medalist in the Worlds in Altenburg, world champion in Samoritz in '98, so a really good teacher. And this young Chinese athlete, long, lean, clearly fast, and just 19 years old. He kind of looks a bit like a deer in the headlights until he gets away from all the razzmatazz and onto the ice.
Yeah, he looks really, really good on the sled, and almost looks like someone who has more experience when you actually see how he's lying, what his position's like. He's just having to work out the steers and actually learn these tracks. But shoulders are low, his head is low, he's keeping his feet together as much as possible.
Never raced on the Königssee track before, turned 19 just 2 weeks ago, and Willi Schneider must be hugely impressed with this man. 17th fastest run, he moves himself up into the top 20 overnight. First time in the World Championships, first time at Königssee. first year sliding. Oh boy, when we get to Beijing in 2022, this kid, who will then be, what, 24 years old, might be a massive star.
Yeah, so here you can just see the difference then in those oscillations. I think he's done incredibly well. Yeah, he's just come down and moved up already, so he's constantly learning about this track. He is so inexperienced here, first time, so every run he's doing, he's expecting a better, and he's learning something new about each corner.
22nd after the first heat, Switzerland's Marco Rohrer, which matches his best World Championship result, his only World Championship result indeed, from Eagles last year in Austria. Known as the Hams by his travelling teammates for his massive quads. A very quick getaway, 4:76, top 10 start.
Yeah, the start is so important. I think, what is it, 1/10 at the top, could be 2/10 at the bottom, so you're always trying to perfect that start, but you've got to be able to learn to slide at the same time, so you can just see him struggling there, not quite comfortable on the sled and have to work quite hard down the straight.
At the moment, with Gang of China in 20th, Jack Thomas of Great Britain in 21st, and Marco Rohrer is not finding any speed on Jack Thomas. So 22nd on the split times. His intention will be to try and move up the order. And at the line, he does not catch Jack Thomas. Now, he is 4 seconds behind the leader. Bearing in mind, the leader is 3/4 of a second ahead of second position. Again, Martin Stucos makes artificial large gaps, doesn't he?
He does, freakily large gaps, to be honest with you.
Exactly right. Well, you saw Marco there shaking his head, very disappointed with that. Not finding the rhythm. Rhythm is everything in this sport, Amy.
Yeah, it's being comfortable on your sled. It's becoming one at your sled so that you're not fighting each other. You're kind of moving as like one being.
Alexander Auer next for Austria. Mickey Grunberger with the sled. Another world champion coach. There's a bunch of them here. Mickey Grunberger, the world champion in 1990 in skeleton here in Königssee, Bavaria. He won bronze medal in the World Championships in 91. Also won a luge World Cup in 1990. So he was doing luge and skeleton in the same season. And Alexander Auer, his father Christian, was also world champion in 1989 for Austria. One of two sliding brothers.
You can see there on the front of his helmet, actually, on the chin guard, you know, kind of scuffed tape. The head is on the ice in quite a lot of the corners, and it's trying to strengthen your neck, tuck your neck into good form. But sometimes those G-forces are so strong, your head is scraping along the ice, and you can just see the proof of it there on the front of his helmet.
His younger brother Florian also slides, and in fact beat him in last year's World Championships. Florian was 17th, Alex was 18th in Innsbruck, their home track. Good exit from the Kreisel into the lower labyrinth, really nice looking run. He's still 23rd on the splits. Can he catch Marco Rohrer or Jack Thomas in front of him? Is he going to move up? At the moment, it looks like the track is not giving much speed to the later sliders, and he does not close. 53.51 his second run, and that's 6/10 slower than his first, so he'll be very disappointed with that.
Yeah, and that was a very good run. So, I mean, almost off the back of that, I'd say it's very hard to tell, but I would say the track is potentially slowing a little bit under all the conditions here. You can see there, it's almost slightly frosting up. You can see the lines of the runners and how it's making it. So, it's quite unusual to come down that much slower and still having a pretty good, solid run.
Yeah, you see the runners leaving marks on the ice, which you don't want. Here's the 67th sled. Here is the 68th of the morning. This is Kevin Boyer, World Cup rookie from Edmonton, Alberta. 4:75 getaway. He's got a good, strong start. But Boyer, a World Cup rookie, as well as in his first World Championships, not wildly familiar with the Königssee track.
Yes, you always have your favourite tracks and the ones you do like and you don't like. I can remember I never used to like high G-force tracks, but somehow always preferred performed better on them. And then you have the really glidey tracks that you've got to try and do as little as possible. And yeah, this is a kind of 50-50, I would say.
Former baseball player and ice hockey player, went to his skeleton school actually with teammate Barrett Martineau a few years ago. And Boyer comes across the line, 20th fastest slide. He's moved up a couple of spots, so there is still some time to be found in the track. That was a 52.61. That was 9/10 of a second quicker than Alexander Auer, who preceded him. So Boyer jumps up 2 spots. And that corrects a few of the mistakes that crept in his first run. In fact, he went 7/10 of a second quicker than his first heat.
Going to be happy with that, aren't you? And then waking up tomorrow, you want to find even more, a few more tenths.
Fellow Canadian stroke Italian, Joe Cecchini, a cop from Calgary, Alberta. I want to say hi to Mum Patricia, the mayor of Fruitvale, British Columbia. Look at the helmet art. These Canadian sliders really go to town. And Joe is no different. He's representing Italy, dual citizenship, and again taking time out of a honest-to-goodness full-time job as a policeman. He's not just token in the police, he actually patrols the streets of Calgary every day, every night. So let's see if he can improve on his first heat as well. Just seeing Kevin Boyer break the tie with Alexander Auer and move up. And Joe Cecchini was 25th after the first heat. 19th fastest start, a 4.80 was a few hundreds quicker than his first getaway. Cecchini's done a couple of World Cup races only this season. Raced in North America, in Whistler, and then in Lake Placid. And the rest of the time he's been back at work and doing the occasional North American race.
Yeah, fighting away there. Just, you can see him kind of having to work really hard because his elbows are kind of coming out. He's losing his form as he's having to kind of almost fight that sled and get the sled to go where he wants to on this track.
It was a little bit scrapey and scratchy, but he has moved up 1 spot at the line. Yes, he has, ahead of Marco Aurora and ahead of Alexander Auer. In fact, he's up 2 spots. He was 25th, now up to 23rd. And Kevin Boyer of Canada just 11 hundredths in front of him. So Joe won't be jubilant with that. But given how little ice time he's been able to fit in this season, actually that's a pretty decent run, and he picks up a couple of spots. 1 more run to go before the 20 cut-off, and he's in the frame. He might make it through into the final and 4th heat.
Yes, I think as an athlete, you're always trying to push your goalposts, aren't you? You always want to do better. You're always looking to improve, and you're always very harsh and critical on yourself. But that is a very good result from him.
Igor Veselov making his World Championship debut just an hour and a half ago in the first heat. Second heat of the day for him. Men don't slide on Saturday. They won't be on ice again until Sunday morning. And a 4.83 getaway. Only 22nd fastest start in the field. And he was in 26th position at the bottom of the track. Started a couple of World Cup races this season. His first at the top level in international sliding. This is his World Championship debut as well.
Really good run here so far. Great down that straight there. He seems very calm on the sled. A little bit too high there in that second oscillation, but controlled it well. However, yeah, didn't quite get it together in that little labyrinth bit there.
Seeing where he should have zagged, the timing just got away from him. They're carrying a little bit more speed perhaps out of the labyrinth than he was expecting, or into the labyrinth than he was expecting. And at the line, he too moves up. So Igor Veselov up to 23rd, ahead of Joe Cecchini, Marco Aurora and Alexander Auer. So he's picked off 3 rivals with that slide. So for Igor Veselov, despite a little wild ride down the labyrinth, that's a decent run. Picks up 3 spots.
Yeah, so he managed to control that high second oscillation. But as he comes down here into the camber, you can really see how tough it is for those athletes to get that perfect straight line. Fighting with your feet, and you're just having to, you know, work hard, but kind of letting the sled flow through that very awkward part of the track.
Well, Igor Veselov, the race leader. Not quite sure he's aware of that yet, or at least he moves up 3 spots, not the race leader. Moves up 3 spots. Dorin Velicu of Romania, first out of the start shed this morning at 11 o'clock. It's now 5-2 before he gets his second heat. So that is a lot of sliding in between. 4:87 getaway. This is his second World Championship start.
Yeah, it's a lot of time for the athletes to work out their nutrition, what are they going to eat, feed on between the runs, resting, stretching, warming up. You know, you're trying to warm up and get that body into an optimal temperature to be able to sprint off the top, and yet actually it's freezing cold outside. So it's quite a tricky thing as a winter athlete to try and warm up in these conditions.
27th at the start, up to 26th position, picking off Alexander Auer, who really had a nightmare second heat. Little rub against the wall is going to take a bit more sled speed away and across the line. Just stays in front of Alexander Auer. And Alexander Auer will not have a good night's sleep, I'm afraid. It was a really, really disappointing second run from him. It wasn't the wildest you'll ever see, but for some reason Auer just didn't have the speed. And Dorin Velicu of Romania picks him off as well.
It's very high there at the exit and dropping away. You can just see his height pulls him up there, and he just skims the inside wall.
Alexander Auer's now lost half a dozen spots. Next up, Alex Hansen, World Championship rookie. Snorre Pedersen, who slid for Norway in the early part of this century, finds himself back on an ice track. He's been involved with the sport in Lillehammer, bringing through new athletes and the occasional older one as well, as we'll see in the women's race. His wife, Maja Pedersen, a former world champion, returns after 6 years away from the ice. So that's going to be entertaining.
Looking forward to that later, watching Maja. Now this is our multi-sports athlete here. Looks more like a surfer, which I also believe he does.
Comes from Canada's west coast, east coast, Nova Scotia. Family originally from Stavanger in Norway. So he's been close to the ocean his entire life, no question about that. This is like, I don't know, winter surfing maybe. 108 kilometers now, 67.2 miles an hour. That's not bad speed and a decent exit again. Little dink in the labyrinth as he came off the Kreisel, like in the first heat. He's picked up a spot, heat 2, moving ahead of Alex Auer and Dorin Velicu, and in front of Marco Aurora. So he's going to pick up 3 spots on this run, and he does. 25th place after being 28th in the first heat.
Yeah, very good solid run from him there. Had to work quite hard out of the Kreisel, but actually kept it together.
So a quarter of a second better than his first run, and this is what he's been doing all the way through training, learning the track, improving a bit at a time. And there's Kristen Bromley, the sled builder, with Richard, his brother. So we've got the 2009 world champion, Kristen Bromley, and the bronze medalist there as well, Adam Pengilly.
So he's surrounded by very experienced people, and Snorri as well as his coach. So he is going to improve run on run, and that's exactly what we're seeing here.
Kristen Bromley, 2008 world champion, of course, you idiot, Martin. Next up is our Ukrainian rookie, second youngest man in the field. Vladislav is just 18 years, in fact, he is the youngest. He's younger even than a Chinese athlete, just 18 years old. And really looks it. 5:01 getaway. A big athlete, though, comes from boxing, mixed martial arts, and strongman competitions. Father was a bobsledder who knew Dennis Ducours, took his son along to Sigulda to try out for bobsled. He spent a week in the ice house, and then tried a bit of bobsled, tried a bit of skeleton, and unsurprisingly came up with skeleton as his favourite sport.
Of course.
Well, listen, when you've done 70 miles an hour head first, sitting in a bobsleigh with your head between your knees is not going to match it for adrenaline, is it?
Well, no, then you want to have a view. You want to see what to do, and you want to be in control of your own sled, and that's exactly what he's doing here.
Skeleton athletes, OCD control freaks. I can't believe you're suggesting such a thing, Amy Williams.
I have been in the back of a bobsleigh once or twice, and that was enough, thank you. I got battered around and bruised, and yeah, I didn't particularly like it. So that was all for me, thank you, and the skeleton was much better.
So our Ukrainian athlete also moves up 4 spots. Good second heat from him. Well, he's definitely a power athlete rather than a sprinter. 5:01 is the slowest getaway we've seen in the field so far, but he's got a lot of potential. And just 18 years old, look at that.
He does, he's obviously got that power and the strength. He just needs to perfect that for skeleton sliding and for skeleton pushing.
One Korean in the field, and it is not last year's silver medalist. He is back home training in Pyeongchang. So Hansin Lee on his own here for Korea. Even the bobsleigh teams have all left. 5:03, well that's 500s quicker than his first heat. And he needs to find some performance in 30th position out of 44 sleds in the first of our 4 heats.
Yes, even though you're towards the end of the field, you still want to improve, you still want to push quicker, you still want to give it your all. He's having to have a little bit of a fight there with him and his sled.
And of course, one of the other things is you've got to bear in mind you're doing 70+ miles an hour head first on the ice. If you don't focus 100%, it is very dangerous.
Yeah, you are making decisions literally in split seconds. You're going to have your best plan of what you want to do and how you want to be around a corner, but the experience comes from knowing if you've made a mistake, how do you get back online as fast as possible?
Well, he remains in 30th place at the moment of our 30 sliders, so doesn't close on Alexander Auer. So he's the first one in half a dozen sleds not to move up the order. And Hansin Lee of Korea. There's Richard Bromley at the bottom. Beg your pardon, Kristen Bromley at the bottom.
So he took that hit on the straight, but then he's just using his legs quite a lot to have to force not to skid. So that's going to bleed a little bit of time. And then quite high there on that second oscillation of that Kreisel.
We saw the Germans using that high line to good effect, using the height to drive themselves faster into the lower labyrinth, but they seem to have the technique. Martin Stukors leads the field. Nikita Chegabov and Axel Junk in the medal positions overnight. We've had 30 sleds down, 14 still to come in the first day of action. And here is the longest, leanest athlete you're going to see in the field, Switzerland's Riet Graf. World Cup rookie this season, just 24 years old, one of a pair of twins. His brother Fadri also slides skeleton. And it's a family tradition. Father Erich Graf won a bronze in 1986 European Skeleton Championships. And I'm sure that his father, and probably the boys, are skeleton sliders as well on the Cresta run in St. Moritz. Well, I'm going to have to check his height because he has got to be well over 6'6". Not a bad looking line. 30th at the start, 31st after the first heat. He is now up to 27th on the splits. This is what we saw when he made his 3 World Cup races. Look at that, 22nd fastest heat.
Yeah, he's going to be happy with that, moving on up.
Absolutely. 31st in the first heat, 22nd in the field in the second, with a 52.69. That was 6 tenths quicker than his first heat. So that's a big improvement. And how much do you think some of that is nervous tension just going away after the first run, right?
Yeah, I think it is. You know, you can be so uptight knowing it's this huge world championships, or obviously then if you're at the Olympics, and I think that can be so overwhelming. For starters, look, there's a camera stuck in their face at the start. They've never had that before, potentially. That in itself can increase, you know, those nerves and the tension of your body. And if your tension in your body is increased just by 1 or 2%, it goes through onto that sled.
Rasmus Ottosson, our only Swede in the World Championships. Rasmus completed his master's thesis on Tuesday night, so he didn't sleep between training on Tuesday and Wednesday. Went to the track, hit the laptop, and came back to the track. And that's, and you know, so many of these guys who say student, all right, well, you know, some of them are actually at school. A lot of them are doing university courses and trying to fit in 6 months of sliding in a 12-month cycle as well.
Juggling and balancing that is hard, and that's where think we're very lucky in Great Britain that we have the funding and the support from Lottery and UK Sport, and a great programme that allows athletes actually to really focus full time on the training, and it really shows in those results. Your brain is focused on one thing. On the flip side, I think it's very healthy to make sure, you know, you're looking after your life post-skeleton, after skeleton, yeah, and to have other interests.
52.93, that's over 4/10 quicker. You saw former British slider Dave Swift there. He's been helping Rasmus out at a few of the World Cup races this season. So Swifty was here 3 weeks ago as well when they were racing in the World Cup. And Rasmus was 28th there in the World Cup field. He is up to 29th place in a much larger field and still learning the track, as you can see.
Yeah, and you can't be too harsh on yourself when you know you're learning the track. It's not experience. You know, some of the top 10 guys in the field here have been on this track year after year after year and have had hundreds of runs, and you know, every run makes a difference.
Japan's Hiro Takahashi, 33rd after the first heat. 2 years ago in Winterberg, his best World Championship result, 14th. And that's a little bit, I'm afraid, the way that his last 2 seasons have gone. They have gradually tailed off over the last couple of years. And Hiro is a long way from making the 4th and final heat. Sunday morning might see an improvement in performance. Let's see if he can pick himself up the order. He was 33rd after the first heat, up to 31st out of the S's.
Yes, it's getting that straight and trying to keep calm as you work your way through that wobble.
Started the sport back in 2003. He's now 32 years old, so you can imagine that he's not going to progress much beyond Pyeongchang. 31st place on the splits, back down to 32nd. So is he going to pick anybody off at the line? 32nd place. He does just squeeze in front of Han-Sin Lee of Korea. So Japan 32nd, Korea 33rd, and our rookie from China in 20th place. And again, that really underlines, you know, Hiro's been on ice since 2003. And the Chinese athlete has been on ice for 12 months, which shows how fast he's learning.
Yeah, I mean, that's a long time to be on ice since 2003. And yeah, and then suddenly the rookie comes along and actually is a natural, has a faster push, suddenly picks it up a lot more. Yeah, and that's the difference.
Next up from the Czech Republic, Filip Malta, born and bred in Munich, Bavaria, and has also competed for Poland. He's been a bobsled and a skeleton athlete. Went to the Youth Olympic Games in 2012 as a German bobsled brakeman. Then retired from the sport for a little while before taking up skeleton. 5:07 the getaway.
Yeah, let's see now if he can improve on his first run. Can he move up a spot?
Father was a bobsledder for Germany as well. Picked up an injury when he was competing, or after competing in Youth Olympics, and had to step away from the track, finishing his education as well before resuming his sporting career. 34th in the first heat. He remains in 34th on the split times. Again, the time compared to Martin Stucors is not quite as relevant for him as the time compared to those around him. And as he comes across the line, 53.69. In fact, that's a 1/10 of a second slower than his first heat. And when you're still in the foothills, Amy, you know, you must know from your own career that the variation in your performance, you hope, gets tighter and closer with every passing season.
Yeah, of course, and those margins, you know, really close the gap. One minute you're talking about seconds, then you go to tenths of a second, then it's hundredths of a second. And I remember like losing a World Junior Champs by 1/100th of a second, and that's over, you know, the 2 runs. And you really learn that it's consistency, and you know, really closing that gap is the most important thing.
And for all our athletes outside the top 20, that consistency, that experience is what they're putting in the bank now. That's exactly the case for AJ Edelman, 2nd World Championships. He competed in Eagles last year. a former bodybuilder, among other things. Played hockey from the age of 3 and was a hockey goalie. So he's used to wearing a helmet and a mask in his sporting career.
Yeah, I actually met him for the first time yesterday in the media centre, and he was asking me tips.
Yeah.
And I just said, just keep your head down. You know, at the end of the day, you want perfect form because you're all working for those perfect steers, but you've got to have the perfect form and be aerodynamic. So I told him keep his head low, and I'm just going to check to see how low it is now.
Well, you know, part of that you want to keep your head low, but you also need to know where you're going. And if you don't know it in your sleep, then you've got to look as well, just to make sure the steer's in the right place. And so that's why you always see the rookies with their heads up
and shoulders up. Yeah, they're looking, they're searching for the entrances. How did I come out of that corner? And your head pops up with that pressure. But yeah, the more experience can sense it. You have that kind of sixth sense. You use your peripheral vision, know, and you sense where you are in a corner. But that only comes with years of experience.
53.88. 0.3 of a second quicker than his first heat. And again, you know, the nerves, the tension before the first run. If your body's tense, you don't work well on the sled. And when you've just got a little bit more relaxation, then it starts to flow and you just ease your way better through the corner as well. Very proud to be here as the representative for Israel Skeleton.
Yeah, you could just see he cuts the end of that corner off, but the angle sort of is wrong for where he needs to be in that bit. But he controls it well, and he gets through safely, and he's happy-ish. There you are, he did a little kind of ish.
Next up for Australia, Dean Timmings, one of twin brothers who competes in skeleton. Brother Nick raced a few weeks ago. Australian born and bred, mother's from Japan, so half the family's in Tokyo, which is where he was until the beginning of last week, visiting the family. A little skid out of the first corner, and that means you have to take some of your starting speed to correct that steer.
Yeah, it just looks like he's not quite comfortable on the sled, because you can just see the sled wanting to skid underneath him. I'm going to do a big shout out right now to Michelle Still, my Aussie buddy, who is at home in Australia watching this with her husband and her little babies. He's just had a great line down there, so she might be shouting at the TV, watching him on the internet.
And that is Michelle's old sled as well, so
there you are. She has an invested interest here. Yeah, the equipment's getting passed around, and it's great to still see an Australian on the sled here, still sliding.
Had moved up to 35th after a quicker start than AJ Edelman, but in 36th position. This is his first senior race this year. Hasn't done a World Cup start. A 54.11. He was 1300s quicker than his first heat, so a bit of an improvement. Needs to find a little bit more to move himself further up the order. And the boys went to school with Formula One driver Daniel Ricciardo when they were at home in Perth. So they're both soccer players. Both came into skeleton at the same time. And there you can see the world champion showing the line.
Yeah, you can see at some points he's almost a sled lower and having to take the longer path. He's not quite catching those oscillations and steering hard enough. Now, steering is through your shoulders. We steer by putting pressure onto the sled through our shoulders, opposite knee, opposite shoulder. I never personally use my knees or anything. I just use my head, my shoulders.
Lots more black, green and gold for Anthony Watson of Jamaica. Pulled a hamstring in training a couple of days ago. And so the 4.88 start, definitely not representative of what this sprinter can do. Jamaican father, Spanish mother, lives in the US. This is his first World Championship. I think I'm right in saying it's the first for a Jamaican skeleton slider in the World Championships. He actually went to US bobsled for tryouts before taking up skeleton for his father's native land. Out to the Chrysler, that's a good exit. Now he is up a spot, up to 36 in the splits. Can he catch AJ Edelman, another one of the small nations athletes?
Yeah, looking very good, doing well here for an inexperienced slider, and particularly on this track.
And across the line he comes 33rd fastest slide, doesn't pick up a second spot, but he moves up one. And he was a bit disappointed to find, or to injure himself in training. And unfortunately, it's a drag race where you only get to accelerate until you lie down. So after that, gravity is your friend, and you've got to try and keep the speed on board.
Sending out love to the family there, I believe. Got to do that. He's got very good form. Yes, too high there in the oscillations, but that's experience on this very unique corner, the Kreisel, the 360. Great exit, so did control it well in that third one.
Plays 5 different instruments as well.
Wow.
Yeah. Next up, Michał Jakobczyk from Poland in his second World Championships, competed in Innsbruck in Austria a year ago. And this is only his second season of sliding. When we met him in Innsbruck, don't forget that was in February, he'd only done 70 trips on ice ever in his life, so really in the foothills still of the sport. He has slid on European tracks exclusively, so he's got a bit of experience here at the junior level.
Struggling there with those S-bends. He was incredibly high, and you can see he had to then drop out of the corner because that pressure just suddenly left the sled.
And again, losing pressure, losing speed, all skidding in the last pressure in the labyrinth of the Kreisel, down into the labyrinth. And every time you go slower through the corners, there's less centrifugal force to keep you on the ideal line, and you have to work harder to stop the oscillations grabbing you. So he was up one spot from the start, but remains in 38th position. That was a bit of a wild ride. 54.85, 14 hundredths slower than his first heat.
Yeah, a little bit of a wild ride there. He was just dropping and falling off the corners because he had too much height at the wrong bit. And then, like you say, the oscillations and the pressures just drop away from you, and you basically just fall off the corner like he's done there. And then you can't do anything but from hit that wall. And unfortunately, he then skidded afterwards because he was fighting the sled.
And again, when the timing is out, it is out all the way down the labyrinth. And there's our Chinese athlete on the right. He's firmly in the top 20. As we continue through the field to Chinese Taipei, Chonghong Chang from Chinese Taipei, 4th out of the start shed this morning. And this young man, just 19 years old 2 weeks ago, started on ice in November this year. He's done 5 Europa Cup races and the Junior Worlds, and that is his total experience on ice. So his slides in his life probably number somewhere around 50.
Not many, hey. So, I mean, just to be at a World Champs on a big stage, you know, unbelievable. A very quick learning curve, shall we say.
Right, manages to hold on to that, gets a good run through the labyrinth. That's what the labyrinth should feel like. Now, if he can do that with another 7 or 8 miles an hour on board, he will be really flying. But he's losing speed all the way through the Kreisel, and now that comes back to haunt him. He's got little momentum to go uphill, so gravity has more of an effect. A 54.38 run from him. Well, that was quicker than we just saw from Michał Jakobczyk of Poland, and so he moves up a spot from 39th to 38th.
Yeah, he kept it together and actually had very good form, so the basics are good. You know, we teach people on day one to have their shoulders down, to have their head low. When you're not using your feet, although we can see him using them there in the Kreisel, you know, your feet are together and you're just concentrating on your form. And so he's got that, he's got the basics there, and with so little runs under his belt, you know, you could only be but happy and calm and know that you're just here as a learning, and every single run is a learning experience.
Another new nation in men's skeleton. Jeff Bauer from Luxembourg, the only Luxembourgeois in the World Championships. And Jeff is the oldest athlete in the field, came late to the sport, discovered it in Salt Lake City, Utah, where he lives, having competed for Luxembourg when his dad was working in the country when he was a kid. He competed in their junior basketball team, and having found skeleton, has decided to found the Luxembourg Skeleton Federation. He is the president, the founder, and at the moment their lead athlete. He's recruiting some youngsters to try and come into the program as well. So starting from ground zero, running the federation as well as sliding for it.
Yeah, pretty incredible. Just having to work and fight around his sled there, and you can just see he's just not quite as calm. But that's, you know, that's the experience of not having the knowledge on the track.
Yeah, lots of knowledge, lots of ice time that his rivals have got under their belts that he doesn't have. 55-second run. And that, again, 3600ths better than his first heat. There's the improvement. So he did 6 runs in training this week, his 7th run and his 8th run now completed this week. And he's already gone over a third of a second quicker. So just starting to tidy up those mistakes as they come through.
Yeah, and that's what he's got to be focusing on, and that's where he has to take the positives. He's not up there with these world bests, but he's improving with every single run.
And starting Luxembourg's journey in skeleton. Once upon a time, Latvia, the dominant force in men's skeleton, was making its first faltering steps in the sport. 40 sleds down, 4 to come in the first day of competition in the men's skeleton worlds. Brendan Doyle up for Ireland. And what a great backstory this young man has. This is his first World Championships. He's not competed in the World Cup before, so he's been on the junior scale in the North America's Cup and European Cup action. Good start from him, 486. So looking to try and move himself up the order, and that's a good run down the straight.
Yeah, you can see there's lots of people watching there, and I just heard someone was screaming. And actually, if you've never slid with people watching you and actually having these people down the crowd, that can be quite off-putting as well. So it's yet another factor that these inexperienced people, the athletes, are having to cope with.
Well, we always say that coming in for the headshots is the weirdest thing about coming up to the senior level, because it's something you've never done before. But you're absolutely right. You know, banners around the track, fans around the track, TV cameras, you don't get at the junior level. 53.44, 32nd best slide in a field of 41 so far. That's a good run, and he has moved up from 41st to 38th place. Exactly what he wanted to do.
Yeah, he's going to be happy with that. Any moving, shifting up those positions. And there he is against Dirkus, our leader.
Well, that's a good-looking line. Look, there's not all that zigging and zagging that we saw from a number of the rivals, and that's why he went 2 seconds quicker.
It's so much better when it's faster.
2 seconds quicker, Brendan Doyle. Good man yourself. 3 to go. Denis Laurentić up next for Slovenia. Phil Searle, the junior or the emerging nations coach there at the top in a green jacket, helping all these young athletes. Laurentić in his 2nd season of sliding, his 2nd World Championship. Slovenia, a tiny team. There's just him and Sara Laurentić, who we'll see this afternoon. In fact, Sara didn't even slide in last year's World. She had to take a season out to earn some money. She was there as a physio. And Denis, oh, wild ride down the straight.
Yeah, the knock-on effect of not quite getting those S-bends right, because it's always what happens in one corner has a knock-on effect for all the rest, and you're just wanting to get it back on track and on those perfect lines as quick as possible. But he is having a little bit of a wild ride here.
Yes, he is, and of course, every time you go sideways, think about a Formula 1 car or an Indy car. When they go sideways, is it quicker? It isn't. It only works in drift, and you don't get points for style here, I'm afraid. And Denis comes across the line. Speed on board at 64.1 miles an hour. Quite quick enough, you would think, for a rookie. But the fastest are doing 72 miles an hour top speed through the speed trap. So Denis remains in 42nd place. That's a 55.8 slide compared to a 56.2. So again, 0.4 of a second better.
Yeah, so there's him coming out of the S-bends and struggling, fighting with the sled and trying not to skid. Now, every single skid you do with your runners going diagonal in the wrong direction over that ice is obviously like a break, and it's like a break going on.
2 to go in our 2nd heat of the men's skeleton world championships. Marin Bangiev from Bulgaria, from Laplan in France, where he now lives and works with wife Camilla, and they run a nice bobsled bar and restaurant there, a little hotel. They're taking a week away from the sport, brought their 4-month-old daughter with them to the track. Camilla trained yesterday, but is not going in the women's world championships. So Marin is the sole representative now for Bulgaria, keeping his toes off the ice, trying to get the hips and shoulders to do the steering for him. Not sure exactly how few races he's done this season, but trying to compete and raise a family, their 3rd child, their business. There's an awful lot of demands on your time.
He did well to control that coming out of the crowd. So you can see his head and shoulders lifting up in a bit of panic. Is he about to hit or is he not? But he did well not to.
Yeah, trying to find his way down the ice. He's not the world's most familiar slider with his Königssee track. And across the line, he does a 54.89. And his first heat, a 57.10. So again, you can see his knowledge of the track is not as strong as in some other tracks. And certainly if he was in the plan, I think he might be going a little quicker, but he went, what was that? That was 3.2 seconds quicker. So Marin Bandiev of Bulgaria out of the Kreisel and into the labyrinth. That was a relatively trouble-free run as well. And the thing, Amy, with hitting the wall is because you're as wide as the sled is, you don't just hit it with the sled, you whack it with the shoulders as well.
Yeah, the guys do tend to, you know, come out over the edge of the sled. So yeah, they're going to hit their shoulders as well and get a few bruises, whereas us girls a little bit smaller, can tuck in. Yeah,
you hope so. Akwasi Frimpong for Ghana, the first African nation in the World Championships of men's skeleton. And Akwasi, 4.83 at the getaway. Well, his first heat, a 57.14. He was only 0.04 of a second behind Marin Bandiev. So again, he will try and improve as well. Good run through the S's and not a bad entrance onto the bend away. That's certainly tidier than he was in practice. And a couple of very sideways slides.
Yeah, he's going to just want to improve on his own performance. Let's see how he gets out of here.
Big second pressure and takes a big shoulder bruising hit on the wall, unfortunately.
But it was better than the first run because he really struggled to maintain staying onto the sled. I mean, he's kind of in the competition within himself. Obviously, they want to improve, but they want to improve on their own performance, and that's quite a big achievement to be able to just do better than your previous times.
55.50 the slide compared to 57.14, so 1.64 seconds faster. And he had just overhauled Denis Larencic of Slovenia and then slipped behind with that hit on the wall. But again, one small error from Larencic in the third heat, and Akwasi will be all over him. Well, I would say he's a little ray of sunshine, but he's A, not little, and B, a huge ray of sunshine. Just a charming young man to be around and so full of energy. And again, look at him burying his head there, knows the hit's coming, but he's still going for speed.
Yeah, I mean, you can see his body literally lifting up off the sled. So they're hard hits, but he controls it well, and his shoulders are still down. He manages to control it better on that second one, and then going through the labyrinth. Yes, his feet are dragging on the ice, but you know what? This is a huge learning curve for him.
Absolutely right. So he rounds out our second heat of 4 of the men's skeleton world championships. Martin Stucors, our double reigning world champion, our 4-time world champion in men's skeleton, looking for a historic hat trick, is the leader overnight. He has 3/4 of a second in hand after putting in 2 textbook runs, but there were a couple of toe steers. There was a little skid. He has work to do in his head, at least. Things to tidy up for tomorrow. Be afraid, be very afraid, everybody else. Nikita Chegibov in the silver medal position overnight. Axel Jung moved from 5th to 3rd, jumping Alexander Tretiakov as Alexander Gassner went the other way from 3rd to 5th. Dave Kress-Cheshire, Canada, still in the top 10. Couple of big winners, Matti Gaspari and Matthias Guggenberger moved up, and Mirambel slipped a couple of spots. And rounding out the top 20 at the moment, moving up one, is our rookie from China. So, all 44 sleds go in this order. Leader first and Ghana 44th in the third heat. Now that will come up on Saturday morning. They'll be on ice at 08:30 local, 07:30 GMT. Adjust your clocks wherever you are. So they get a day and a half off to recuperate, and then they will be back going all 44 in the third heat as we cut into the fastest 20 to decide the medals. Join Amy Williams, me Martin Haven, and the IBSF TV crew here for the decider of the men's skeleton worlds on Sunday morning in Königssee, Bavaria.